box, guys?
It's only the next level logo we can see on there.
Oh, I don't have this output. Yeah, I can't show you it yet, but I can show you here.
There it
Sweet.
is.
Oh yeah, there's see the three of us there. Yeah.
Triple box.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty legit.
All right, it is 6:30, so.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another edition of the Next Level Broadcasting Show. I am Eric Huffman, joined again by Jared Stamen, Charles Strail behind the desk once again tonight, and a special guest. We'll get into that here in just a second. We have a fun show tonight. We'll get into our guest here first, and then we'll get into our playoff highlights from last week. And then we'll get into a little roundtable discussion and see if there isn't a team or from around here that we think could have a deep run in the playoffs, not just this year, but maybe in the future, and make a run to a state championship. Then we'll talk a little Detroit basketball, and then we'll preview the Lions and Eagles coming up this week. But right now, I was blessed to be able to have a year of ESPN Radio in Northern Michigan and do a year of doing football up here. But nothing compares to our guest in studio today. 40 plus years of announcing and lifelong PA announcer for Boyne City. Please welcome into the Next Level studio, Mr. Tom Clemens. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you guys.
Yep, and so we've got we just want to talk, broadcasting live with you and have a series of questions or whatnot, see if we can't pick your brain a little bit. Charles, you got something you'd like to start this off with?
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about off the rip, Tom, you've seen a lot of the different progression of athletes, student athletes. What have you noticed in the progression of your 40 years of seeing and then calling and then narrating what you've seen on the field or the court? How have the student athletes progressed or become more dynamic athletically now?
I think it's a lot to do with their training and the way things are happening now. In my football days, way back before they had helmets, we didn't have the plays that they have now. We didn't have the strength or conditioning that go on. But the nice thing about the athletes now is they're very dedicated to the sport that they're in. And they run faster, they jump higher, and it's evident in basketball. And I realize we're talking football here, but in basketball, those guys are fast. I mean, they're really fast. And in football, you see from your highlights, as we'll see later on, these guys are running all over the place. Very good athletes. I think they train better, they eat better, and they really want to play. In high school, you always have a couple of guys that maybe not going to be starting or doing what they want to do, but they're part of the team too, and I think that's one of the most important parts of it. I see that with Boyne. They're team-oriented. I see that with a lot of high schools. I mostly see Boyne and
Sure.
whoever comes to show up.
Whoever shows up, right?
Right. But they're dedicated to making things right. There's purpose and promise and progress and all the things that go on with that. And Boyne is very conscious about that. And I know other schools have been because I've worked with other schools.
Sure.
The most important thing I see right now with the athletes is that they are in better shape and that they are able to eat better. Water. 50 years ago, water, you couldn't have water.
It was weakness.
They didn't give you water.
Right.
You had to earn water, yeah.
Right. You're doing 2 days in August, and you're dying out there, and you ain't seen a bit of water.
Oh, no. Down up some sprints, and then maybe a drink.
Dreaming of water.
Yeah, so my other question that I have for you, Tom, is so you talked about a couple of different P words there. You talked about progress, and you talked about, practice. Let me talk about parents. This goes well with how athletes and sports and high school sports in general, but what have you noticed about how parent interaction and parent behavior has changed in 45 years of watching some of the great student athletes play out on the field and courts?
Parents are interesting.
It's a clean word.
I did. I coached softball. Was assistant coach for softball for a long time. I got to get real close to parents, and my daughters were all athletes. They were all volleyball players, and I got to meet them. I have basketball players. The thing I see about parents is that they live a little bit too much with their child. If they were a good athlete, mostly we have three types of parents. One who is a great athlete and understands what's going on. Two, the one that was okay athlete, but still understand what's going on. And the third parent is the one who thinks his child is the star. That has somehow have to stop a little bit because it does get frustrating for a coach. And I sometimes pity these coaches who have been through that. And it's unfortunate they have, but it happens.
Yeah.
And if we can get the parents on the right, and the parents do a great job. They feed the kids, they bring stuff. I mean, my mom had a cow. I told you, my mom had a cowbell. That was it when she came to my games. But the idea of the parents just letting the coach teach them. Doesn't matter how much you know. It's who he plays for. If you're playing for a great coach and you like that coach, you're going to do better. If you play for an idiot, it ain't going to happen.
No, I had got caught up in some conversations back when I was still coaching basketball where it's too bad when a player has to come up and put an onus on, hey, can the players just play and the coaches just coach because you've got too much involvement in the stands?
Sure. So, Jared, I know you had a question as well.
You know, Tom, my question is a little bit, we're talking about athletes and anything, but I want to talk about your announcing, career. One of the things that, this is my first year doing this, and one of the things that I've been told by everyone that's done play-by-play is you learn within the first 2 or 3 games what you're kind of filling the void is. If it's a little catchphrase you do all the time, but, 45 years, is there one that you've got yourself doing time and time again?
I like touchdown.
Touchdown?
I like
pretty good one.
touchdown Boyne City. That's the one I like.
It's a good tick
That's
to have.
that's a pretty good one, yeah.
But no, there's you learn as you go. We used to travel and do the Lions games, or not do the Lions games, but go to the Lions games, and we always sat where I could watch the booth, so I could see what was going on out there, what binoculars we were using. I wanted to be those guys.
Yeah.
And the Lions announcer right now is incredible. He's just so much fun on the radio.
Dan Miller.
Dan Miller, I mean, he's just a riot. Catchphrases come with the game.
Yeah.
You still have to say touchdown pass. You still have to say fumble. You still have to say that. There's a host of tacklers for Boyne City, or there's a boatload of Vikings, who have just you're saying different things. But if you get caught on that crutch and you keep it, that hurts. And you just try to follow the ball.
Yeah.
Follow the ball. That's all.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question?
You did. It's everyone's a little different, so.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to the analog days, back to the days of dead radio. I worked for 106.7 The Peak, too, back in the day. I think when I got in there, they were just ending the stacks of tape decks to be able to run spots, and they were starting to get computerized or whatnot. So my question would be, as going into an old school broadcasting to today's streaming and podcasts, is there something from yesterday that you wish you had today, and vice versa? Is there a piece of today's equipment that you wish you would have had for back when you first got started?
Well, I would love to have all your stuff. I mean, that was really something. I did games by myself. You do a football game by yourself, and that's because the color man was not or sick or something, just couldn't make it. But you do it in basketball, you're keeping score, you're trying to keep stats, and you're trying to sound sane. And then somebody decides to put a delay on your broadcast, so you can't hear it through your headphones because you're 5 seconds off.
Yeah, right.
You're standing there going, and you just can't do it. So, but the idea of setting up. If there's one thing I would have loved to have is somebody come set up for me, because that's a lot of work and you get a lot of conversations. With a lot of people
so much equipment to haul back then.
Yeah.
I know.
I had a big Nike bag, probably as big as these $2 right here.
I remember doing remotes. I mean, it's tables and it's cases of stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's an hour and a half to set up. Now you can set up in 15, 20 minutes.
In Boyne, we built we built a football field. We turned it around in the late 90s, and we went undefeated one year. We beat St. Francis. It was a great time, but it was all new at that time. So right now our booth has kind of fallen down a little bit. So we're going to change that. There's going to be a new booth coming in, and I hear Charlevoix is going to do one, and there's going to be a softball field on on campus. So
Nice.
we'll have all our sports right there. But that's because of the dedication that those athletic directors and the superintendents have. Pat and Matt do a fabulous job of keeping things right. And I've met a lot of athletic directors and principals throughout my years. So, and Charlevoix had some great ones, man. I remember interviewing Roger Gall once, and I said, Roger, what do we have to do tonight to have a good football game? And he said to me, looked me dead in the eye, and said, we have to block and tackle. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. That was good.
Plain as day.
Yeah, plain as day. But you guys put together such nice work, and we were doing the best we could to make sure that our listeners were able to hear us. First thing we did was find the phone line. Now, those were phone lines back
Yeah.
then. They weren't, cell. And you find your phone line, you hook up, and you make contact with the station. Then you're good. You're in good shape. And some days when I was at the AM station at WPZ, we did not have good signal when we went to Gaylord, right? So we're timing commercials. And one time in Pelston, they ran the commercial, and then they didn't run the other commercial, and I said a bad word and because they didn't run the other commercial.
Yeah.
So...
I'll finish our segment up with this. Looking back at your career, what is the moment you're most proudest of? Maybe not the greatest reward, but what's the one moment that you can recall that you hung up the headphones at the end of whatever you were doing and saying, you know what, this is why I do this?
Well, that's easy. That's when Boyne went undefeated in the 90s. Pat Klooster was the coach. Pat Klooster was a great gentleman, still is a great guy. But after the end of the game, all the cameras and stuff went out to see him. Now, that would be where we were on the other side of the field. They came out, rushed him so they could get something with him. And he did the most amazing thing. He pointed at the score booth where I was at the press box and came up and talked to me first.
Awesome.
And I had 9 and 10, 7 and 4, and whatever was around us. And I did the interview for him.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes it special.
Yeah,
it really does.
That's a stand-up move right there.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, for giving us the time. I know you're going to stick around and watch some more of these segments with us tonight. We appreciate that. Right now, we're going to move on and get into our highlights from last week's playoff games. And
You guys are very good.
Appreciate
You guys do
it.
a
We
great
appreciate
job,
it.
And I
appreciate the accolades.
I love them, man, when I'm watching you.
We're going to get into our first game of last week. Traverse City St. Francis took on Kingsley. And that was a pretty intriguing game. Some side stories to that. We're not going to get into that one tonight, but we're going to get into the highlights of this game as Charles is going to get those up for us here right now.
Kingsley highlights, right?
Basically.
It was a lot of Kingsley highlights in this one. I mean, you're going to start off here, unbelievable catch here by Hodges. Going to take this one down to the 25 on the. I believe this was the second possession of the game for the Kingsley Stags, and once they really got it rolling, Kingsley did not look back. Gavin Lewis, you're going to hear that name mentioned a couple times tonight. He's got 3 highlight touchdown runs that you'll see here. Here's another just absolutely great touchdown run by Kingsley, just being able to stay on their feet. Here's a fumble by the Gladiators on I believe the next play of the game, or the next series of the game. This is one I think was the play that you could say really broke the spirits of the Gladiators as they were down 2 scores already, and then after that, they just couldn't find their footing. Here's a Gavin Lewis touchdown run, and he breaks multiple tackles here, but just want to highlight the great blocking by the Kingsley offensive line on this play because it was spectacular all night long. Gavin Lewis did have a couple of defenders to juke out, but let's just go ahead and run this. I mean, gets through the line of scrimmage, a couple of arm tackles, then he's in a foot race, and the Gladiators just weren't able to keep up with the foot speed of Gavin Lewis. And you see right there, celebrate young man, and well-deserved. and the Kingsley Stags kept it going. This is Gavin Lewis again. No, this is not the same play. This is another one. It looks almost identical, but he goes, oh, stiff arm. And then he's going to get tripped up and then rumble, stumble, and get into the goal line for that touchdown. Here's Hodges again breaking this one off. This was about a 62-yard touchdown run. He took this one into the house. This is still second quarter. Now we've got a St. Francis highlight here. This is a throwback pass. John St. Peter airing it out to Cooper Sellers on a little trickery. And here's Colton Goethals getting the interception and taking this one almost all the way back for the pick six, get pushed out at about the 2-yard line. And this game was 50-6 at halftime and 57-6 the final, as you see Kingsley punching it in there for that score right before half. And then here's Colton Goethals again through the air, dragging one defender in for the touchdown. And Kingsley wins this one by a score of 57-6. So Kingsley Stags really executed their game plan. I was at the game for this game, and once Kingsley settled in, that fumble that they forced and recovered it, the momentum and the spirit of the Gladiators just kind of got sucked out, and then the stampede of the Kingsley Stags was on after that. Kingsley will take on Reed City this week at home. They've already played Reed City once so far this year. It was a pretty close game, but they'll be taking on Reed City once more for an opportunity to go to a quarterfinal game. Eric.
Yeah, thanks a lot. For those highlights and feedback from that game, and our next game would be Gaylord St. Mary's taking on Onekama, and Tom Clements' son, Tom Clementson. I had to say that with Tom Clements in the studio.
Here he goes. He's around the side.
Here's the highlights from Tom.
And here he goes. Some speed up the middle. Makes that secondary miss, and it's going to be a touchdown run. First blood drawn by the Portagers. He's going to drop back. Looks like they're going over the top. No, he faked it. The ball's loose. St. Mary is on it. And they were on it. Looks like Onekama keeps the ball. Here goes Greenier. He's got a block, and he's got open field all the way down. So that's exactly what the Snowbirds needed. They even it up on a Logan Greenier touchdown run. It's going to be over the middle, and they get Tyler Hart. And he shakes loose. He's in the end zone. So here we go, and they're going to go ahead and squib that one, kick it away. Initially picked up, and they're going to go ahead and lateral that one back. A little trickeration to Tyler Hart, and he's got some room to run, and there he goes. He's got one man to beat as he takes it all the way back to the house, and it's an Onekama touchdown. He's going to go ahead and take the snap, little fade route to the corner. Dives and makes the catch. Beautiful play. Drop back, going to be a quick little pass out to that sideline, and misplayed the angle. Joe Jacobson trying to catch up to him, and he does, but not before he gets across the end zone for him, and now going for a big shot, and he hits it, and he held onto the ball. Looks like a good, clean reception. There's Jacobson on a big hitter, backed up to their 9-yard line. Bradford drops back, short pass underneath on the crossing route. Hart's got it, and he's got a lot of space in front of him. He's all the way down the sideline with one man to beat and cuts back in. Tries to slow him down, but he shakes another man loose, and Hart's going to make another house call. Bradford's going to roll that one out, cuts it back in, back out, and he's in the end zone for the score.
Season 8-3, I believe. But the great thing for Gaylord St. Mary's is, man, do they know how to reload every single year. And, man, they've got a lot of youth on that squad. And I can't see anything else but them coming back and making another march, possibly to get finally that conference title and get that district title.
Right, next year would certainly be the year that you would say Gaylord St. Mary would have a lot of those horses coming back from this year's team that made it to a district championship game. Let's see if they can continue to build on the success that they had this year, Eric. But now I know you and Jared want to talk about the Glen Lake versus East Jordan game, as they'll be taking. That was a highlight that you guys were at that game last week. So let's jump to that one.
Did you find who they were playing real quick?
Yeah. Onekama will be playing, was it Fletch North Dickinson?
Feltz North
Feltz North
Dickinson.
Dickinson. Yep. Okay. Nice. So so Jared and I were down to Glen Lake, watched the Lakers take on the Red Devils, and early on, I thought it might have been the Red Devils' night. They came in spirited, and as we're going to get into the highlights, I'll let you start taking over the highlights here. But the game kind of changed as it went on.
Yeah, this first highlight here, you're going to see a 53-yard pick six by none other than big play Brady Wilson.
Hey, say his name every
you
week.
Kind of started to coin, and well, the East Jordan, we had some East Jordan guys to the right of us, and they were really hyped. Maggie Schaefer here on the extra point. She's been a late season addition for the Red Devils, and she has been fantastic. But Sam Dykstra and the Glen Lake Lakers, right? This is right after the Brady Wilson touchdown.
Look how open and wide open this lane is for him just to keep trucking.
Yeah, Sam Dykstra just hits that next level speed, and no one else is even close to him. He is just on a mission. And then here you're going to see a bad snap. This was on 4th and 8, as you can see here. Still the first quarter. Glen Lake, Parker Robinson trying to get the ball, just trying to gain as many yards as he can get back. Defense shuts him down. They're getting the ball at about the 8 to 8-yard line.
Yeah, what's nuanced about that is we saw that Glen Lakes have bad snaps in the first game of the year versus Traverse City St. Francis, so they'll definitely want to clean that up. They've had, since that first game, 9 games to clean it up, and they still haven't done it yet. So maybe if you're a Glen Lake Laker fan, that's got to be at the top of the squawk sheet in order to get that cleaned up, so you don't have that potentially bite you in the butt against Lake Linden Hubble next week.
Yeah, it was something we saw East Jordan struggle with a lot during the year, too. So something that both these teams should be familiar with. And they get the ball close in, and Max Beal does what he does best, punch it in from short distance here. And then right before half, East Jordan's feeling good. Lakers do get the ball at halftime. But hold on a minute. Number 34, Brecken Nerg, breaks a Max Beal tackle. And the next thing you know, he's doing a little jig in the end zone. And they're tying the game, 14-14 at halftime.
Yeah,
East Jordan did not respond.
We were watching these before we got started tonight, and Charles pretty much said that was the play that switched the game around, and you got to wholeheartedly agree with that. You make that tackle, you go in with a 7-point lead pretty much, and you've got a different mindset coming out of the locker room.
Yeah, you sure do. But one thing that we both saw is the East Jordan offense just did struggle all night here. As we're going to see, I believe this is Dykstra punching it in.
Thomas, have you seen anything that you want to add into so far?
Again, it's the speed. Back maybe a while back, they had 1 or 2 people with speed. Mm-hmm. You always had some. Now there's the whole backfield.
They preach team speed now, for sure. Absolutely.
And guys are whacking people out there.
Oh, yeah. They're looking for contact. We heard some pads popping from the booth where we were sitting.
Yeah, and it was a closed booth.
Yeah, and it was a cold, blistery night, and I think that definitely played a little bit of a factor in East Jordan's offense because it was a run type of game. Max Beal for the Red Devils, and then Sam Dykstra. They were just trading punches back and forth. East Jordan defense just could not hang in long enough to win that game. Lakers have a great second half and move on to the next round.
Yeah, but let's not forget about East Jordan as well. Like I said with Gaylord St. Mary's, I expect East Jordan to come back next year too. A lot of youth on that squad as well, and another opportunity to make another march towards the playoffs.
Yeah, anytime you can bring someone back like your quarterback, who anytime
Absolutely.
Will Webb steps on the field is most likely the most talented player on the field, or most athletic player on the field, I should add. So anytime you have that opportunity to bring back a player like Max Beal, I think East Jordan's got a lot of opportunities there. Also, bring back Brady Wilson. You call him Big Play Brady, right?
Yeah, I'll give Eric the credit. I did not coin that one. But I do actually think Max Beal is a senior, so that definitely would be a loss for them. But it's next man up. Garrison Henry, their sophomore, has seen some decent reps at linebacker and running back, and I think he'll fill those big shoes quite well.
Well, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to discuss the likelihood of a team from Northern Michigan that can make a deep run and potentially bring a state title home to Northern Michigan. We'll do that after a quick break. You're watching the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Kevin Klein. TVC, we're proud to help keep you connected to high school sports in Northern Michigan, so you can stay in the game all season long with TVC, your Northern Michigan connection.
Hello, I'm Ryan Beningo, but you might know me for my business, Professional Seamless Gutters, where we specialize in, you guessed it, everything gutters. New installation, replacements, cleaning, leaf guards, rain chains, and much more. But unlike many service providers, when you call Professional Seamless Gutters, you get me, Orion, not some bum intern or call center recording. So when you're contemplating any services regarding the gutters on your home or pole barn, think Professional Seamless Gutters.
Welcome back to the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Eric Huffman, Jared Stamen, Charles Strail, and Ron Clemens joining us in studio this week. Thank you so much again, Ron, for joining us. Right now, we're going to get into the likelihood of a Northern Michigan team making a run and bringing home a state championship. And Jared, let's start with you. Let's go with a team. It can be 11-man, it can be 8-man. Give us a school that you think could bring home a title to Northern Michigan and why.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Northern Michigan. I'm going to talk about some real Northern Michigan football, and that is football up in Menominee. They are undefeated in this season. They're playing all home games so far, and they'll be facing off against Shelby, who was 5-4 coming into the playoffs. They lost 2 to come in to the playoffs, have obviously won 2 straight. But traveling up to Menominee, a team that has just pretty much been blowing teams out. Last week they played McBain, who unfortunately beat our team, Charlevoix, in the Week 1 matchup. But they smoked them 49-6. And then the week prior, their Week 1 was a Manton win again, 48-17. So this team knows how to win games. They're going to have home field advantage for most likely all of the playoffs. And they're just kind of, I think they're the team to beat. And, we're talking about Northern Michigan teams. You can't really get much more north than Menominee.
Tom, obviously you're kind of focused on Boyne City, but you see obviously a lot of teams, and in your years and whatnot, obviously you hear from a lot of teams as well. Give us a team that you could think could possibly bring home a title to Northern Michigan.
I have to say Kingsley. I really like Kingsley. The whole athletic department in Kingsley is a phenomenal run athletic department, and you can follow them. I believe they're just tougher than nails right now. They had a great line. They had great runners, and when they played Boyne, all of a sudden we looked up at the scoreboard and we went, oops. That we didn't. I didn't expect that. I mean, but Kingsley always has a good. Some good team of Kingsley is going to do something, whether it's volleyball or football. There's going to be a champion somewhere.
Charles, what have you got for a school that could potentially bring one home?
Yeah, I got to go with the Kingsley Stags as well. I was there on the mic broadcasting doing that game last week. Gladiators of Travis St. Francis and the Stags of Kingsley. And the way that Kingsley came out and played inspired football, I also did the game when they played earlier on the season. They played October 10th, and then they also played last Friday as well. And Kingsley got nothing but better as the season continued to progress and go further along into the playoffs. And Week 2 of the playoffs, they were about 40 to 50% better than what they were in Week 5 when I saw them play in Week 5. So the team that I think is peaking right now is Kingsley, and I think they still haven't hit their true ceiling. I think when they really want to unleash that passing game, they've kept it close to their vest so far because they, quite frankly, haven't needed to use it so far in the playoffs through 2 games. But they'll be taking on Reed City this week, a team they already played and already beat earlier this season. So like Tom, I got to go with Kingsley as well because I think they're on a collision course to run into Jackson Lumen Christi in the state championship game.
Yeah, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to go 8-man football, and I'm going to give it to Gaylord St. Mary's. Although we just saw them kind of get manhandled on a playoff game the other day, but I think, with their youth, and we talk about basically every week with the standard being the standard there in Gaylord St. Mary's, it's just a retool and a reload, and once this youth gets older, they're only going to be that much better. And again, with the way their coaching staff is and the way their system is, it cannot be very long before the Snowbirds are bringing home an 8-man title to Northern Michigan.
You got anybody you think this year, Eric?
This year, my money's on Kingsley.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you and I think we were talking about the other day, and I kind of jokingly said Kingsley, because it seemed like to be the easy bet to take. So I tried to waver from that because I knew we'd probably have at least one Kingsley in here tonight. But for the future, I'm going with the Snowbirds.
Okay, so we got one Menominee, Snowbirds in the future, and then the present, Kingsley. So, I mean, a lot of different people saying that Kingsley Stags might be the team to make that deep potential run and represent Northern Michigan here in the MHSAA, playoffs. Any final thoughts there, Tom?
Well, how exciting is that? I mean, to play in the playoffs like that and to be able to play teams up against some big teams. Jackson Lumen Christie crushed Boyne City many years ago. They're such a big school, and they do great football, basketball, softball, baseball. I mean, they're just a good school.
Well,
and Kingsley, I'm sorry.
No,
Kingsley,
go ahead.
Kingsley, I think Kingsley can whip them just because they can whip them. Okay? They know they can. They know they could beat Traverse City St. Francis.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching your game, and I'm going, what? Who's playing here?
Yeah, when we were up at the Glen Lake, every time the PA announcer was talking about the Kingsley against Traverse City St. Francis score, I mean, they were cheering. I mean, it was just a shock to us all. I remember we were in the booth, and my jaw actually hit the floor when I heard that 30-6 score. So Kingsley definitely on a roll.
Yeah, Charles, I don't know if you had anything else to add before we...
No, I mean, I just think that we've kind of hit it all. I mean, with that, next topic, next man up, it's Detroit basketball.
Yeah, we're going to talk about can the Pistons actually win the East, gentlemen? I think last night after last night they're 10-2.
Sure
the
are.
Great thing about last night was you had, I think, 7 players that weren't on the roster or available last night, and you still won. So again, you're 10-2 at the top of the East currently. Obviously, a lot of basketball yet to be played. But could the Detroit Pistons win the East this year, Jared?
They absolutely can win the East. Do not get me wrong. Are they my personal favorite? I gotta say no. Not
You're gonna
right
say Celtics.
Now. No, trust me. I am a Celtics fan, but they are not there this year. When Jason Tatum's hurt, you see a big lapse because he's really that good. But the team I think is gonna win out the East is a team that won out the East last year. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are still overall the best team in the East. I think the Pistons are on their way up. I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish 2 or 3. But the East, even though it is a lot weaker than the West, which, well, it's pretty hard to compete with those teams in the West. I don't know who's going to win that division. But I just got to say the Cavs are still the team to beat. More experience, better defense team, in my opinion. And I just think with Donovan Mitchell, he can blow up for 50 points any night. Still the team to beat in the East.
Charles, you got any additions into this topic?
I mean, I like a lot of things that the Pistons have going on right now. They got a very young core nucleus of players. They are in good cap standing. So in the NBA, obviously, you have a soft cap, meaning that however much money the owners want to spend and above the cap, and the cap apron, you are taxed on with those dollars that you spend in and above the salary cap. And right now, the Pistons are very well positioned to be able to go out and this season swing a trade for a player that might be the difference maker on this team to propel them over the likes of the teams you mentioned, Jared, to win the Eastern Conference. And for Detroit, if you look up and down the roster, they really only have a couple of old guys on the team, for lack of a better term. And Tobias Harris, they actually got younger last year, letting Tim Hardaway go and bringing in another Michigan Wolverine and Duncan Robinson. And Robinson last night had 23 points, making 7 3-point shots. And they brought in Robinson to shoot the basketball, and that's exactly what he's been doing. I do want to give a shout-out to Jalen Duren, because Jalen Duren over the summer, according to reports, grew 3 to 4 inches. The dude's only like 22 years old. He's now 7'1", like 255. He's an absolute beast. And so far this season, he's averaging a double-double, and it's like a 16 and 12 rebound double-double. So he's also increased his free throw percentage. He's shooting near 80% from the free throw line, which, I mean, for basketball fans out there, you know that the curse of what a lot of big men have is being able to knock down free throws late in the game. So the Pistons don't have to take one of their best defensive and offensive finishers around the rim off the floor in crunch time, and it really allows them to stay efficient with that 1-5 pick and roll between Cunningham and Duren. And I don't want to get too down in the weeds here, too analytical and break down ball too much, but I just think that enhancement and improvement of Jalen Duren's game, not only from a physical standpoint, but also as he's learned to become more comfortable playing in this offense and playing in the NBA and understanding how to get his shots and understanding where he can be defensively to not pick up a foul is ultimately what's going to allow this Pistons team, which so far through 12 games, they're forcing, in the last 8 games of which they've won 8 consecutive, they're forcing the most turnovers in that 8-game span. So the defense is really good. All of their other metrics in terms of defensive efficiency, points allowed, are top 10 in the NBA. So I really like what the defense has done, and Duren playing backline rim support to go along with the wings out there like Asar Thompson and coming off the bench with Ron Holland. I like the Pistons, but you also got to look at some of the other teams that could sneak up on them in the Eastern Conference. And even though that the Indiana Pacers made it to the finals, Halliburton, I think this year the Pacers might just be taking some time off. The Orlando Magic, they made the sign and trade acquisition of Desmond Bane, but does that truly make them a contender? Is Paolo Banchero really like an A-caliber player like we've seen with Cade Cunningham? I don't know. And then, obviously, we saw Boston earlier. I think the biggest team in contention with the Pistons this year is the 76ers, and they're so dependent on the health of Joel Embiid that you don't ever know what you're going to get with the
Trust
Sixers.
the process.
Yeah, trust the process, exactly.
It's
Pistons
worked
and
out so
Celtics,
well.
or 76ers Pistons will actually play this coming Friday night for an NBA Cup game. So it's interesting, and I don't want to take anybody's thunder there, but I just kind of got into that because I love watching the Pistons, what they've done. Not only, and I do want to give credit because a lot of people are going to hate on Troy Reaver for some of the draft picks that he made. Troy Reaver was responsible for drafting Cunningham, Duren, and Asar Thompson. So, obviously Cade kind of fell into his lap. He did trade up for Jalen Duren, so kudos to Troy Reaver. But then also, Trajan Langdon bringing in I think a key signing was Tobias Harris for veteran leadership and support. I also think Duncan Robinson is somebody they had to bring in due to the Malik Beasley situation. And also, Ron Holland, he's in his second year now, really starting to develop and fit into this role. I believe they call him Crash Out Holland because anytime he gets the ball, he's just going to go to the rim and attack the basket. And I recommend – actually, I don't recommend it for a young player, but it seems like when young players have that relentless attack attitude, they get the benefit of the doubt more than often, and it helps them not overthink when they're out there playing.
Yeah, I'm going to talk first about Cade Cunningham. Obviously, he is the real deal. If you haven't recognized that, you need to start watching some Pistons basketball because he should be, if not already, in MVP conversations with the way he plays the game. And let's give some credit to Bickerstaff, the coach, too. The team is playing team defense, not just the starters, but the bench players, too. I think they are the second-ranked defense in the league right now, and that takes a complete team to be able to do that. And then Charles mentioned him twice, but I'm going to bring up Ron Holland too. A very high active man off the bench. Averages right around 10 points and a couple of steals, but just his high energy really helps give those almost like the new microwave coming off the bench and and providing that spark right now. So those are kind of 3 little quick points that I wanted to add to possibly the Pistons being able to win the East. But I guess my main point would be they seem just to be a complete team, first team and second team, and you really don't miss a step, it seems, when you've got to make those switch outs. Tom, you got anything you want to add to this?
I love watching the Pistons now. They are so much fun. But I have to say, my favorite Piston is the public address announcer.
Mason,
Mason, baby. Yes.
Oh yeah, back in the days, back in the 04 title days or whatever, listening to Mason and whatever. Those are some of the highlights before the game even got started.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I want to actually, bring this back to Charles real quick. You'd mentioned one of the teams you thought was threatening to the Pistons was the 76ers, and you mentioned Joel Embiid. Well, first off, in my opinion, I think Tyrese Maxey is the guy you've got to be worrying about. He's averaging about 32, shooting 45% from the field, pretty much leading the team in every stat. But what do you feel about the Milwaukee Bucks? Do you think they're kind of a threat? They lost Dame. They signed Miles Turner this year. personally, that'd be a team I'd put a little bit above the Sixers as a threat, because who's going to guard Giannis?
Jalen Duren going to guard Giannis. That's what's going to happen because Duren's now 7-1. And, you've seen the impact that Duren has, not only playing out on the perimeter, but playing at the rim. Listen, I know Giannis is great. I also know that Giannis is approaching 32 years of age, and Duren is 22. So
Yeah, I also don't know if they have the same continuity that Detroit has right now either. I don't think they're togetherness as much as Detroit has been lately.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe they're not too much together, but when you have a guy like Giannis, sometimes it's like, does it really matter if he can just say, I'm going to put up 40?
Give me the 04 Pistons against the All-Star Lakers any day.
Well, Jared, just to kind of double back on that. Here's what I like. The Pistons force the most turnovers a game right now in their 8-game winning streak. They're 10-2, and in that stretch, they won last night without 7 key players actually playing in the game. I mean, they had guys out there like Bobby Clinton, Chaz Lanier, if you're a fan of college basketball. Lanier, former Tennessee Volunteer, was playing a lot.
Paul Reed was the leading scorer.
Let me give you a name. Dennis Jenkins. Yeah. Anybody?
Who hit the one in the corner last night?
So that was Dennis Jenkins 2 nights ago on Monday night. They were playing Monday night in that game. Let's see, Monday night. Who'd they beat Monday night? The
Wizards. Wizards and OT.
Wizards,
So they beat the Wizards on Monday night, and you just look at it from that perspective. The Pistons have strength in numbers, and that used to be the calling card for the Golden State Warriors back when they were winning titles and doing their thing out there on the Eastern or West Conference. I just like what the Pistons are developing here. I would say right now they've got a 20% chance to win the Eastern Conference if I was signing a percentage value to that. And we'll go around here, the round table, and say, what percentage value would you align to the Pistons winning the Eastern Conference?
Well, I guess I'll give it a start. I think it's too early to really call favorites. I would say no more than 10%.
Okay, a little low, but I mean, everybody's got their own number. Eric?
I give it 40.
40%?
Yeah.
Tom?
I'll do 25.
25%?
To win the East. I just want to make sure we're talking about number 1 seed.
I'm talking to win the East,
the Eastern
not
Conference.
not to get the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference before the playoffs. I'm talking to win the Eastern Conference.
Make it to the finals?
Make it to the finals.
Yes.
Oh, I would say 5% then. I would go even lower.
So, Jared, what would you say is the biggest roadblock for them not making to the finals?
I can tell you exactly what it is, and it is the lack of experience. I really think experience in the NBA plays a huge role in going on those long-winded runs. And also, I guess this extra point doesn't matter, but I just think that they don't have enough experience. They're young. I think next year they'll be even better than this year. I also don't believe Duncan Robinson is a championship-winning piece to add. I think
he has played in the finals.
He has, but that's Jimmy Butler putting the heat on his back. No credit to Duncan Robinson in that respect. I think that they do maybe potentially need to make a trade. I actually think next year would be the time where you try to make a big free agent signing. I think this year you build on what you got, see if you can make a run of the finals, but I just don't think they're there quite yet.
You've got interchangeable parts on a team that's in first place in the East right now. And so you can do basically whatever you want depending on sickness, injury, whoever's playing well at this time of the year. And you're not going to lose a step from what I've seen 12 games in.
Tom?
I've seen all 4 major league teams in Detroit feed off what the Tigers did last year, not this current
2 years
year,
ago,
but
yeah.
2 years ago. They all got better.
Yeah.
The Lions certainly got better. The Pistons, look at them now, 10-2. I don't know when they were 10-2 before.
I can't remember the last time
Quick,
the Pistons.
and quick tip of the cap to Skubal, back-to-back
Yes.
Cy Youngs.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So, but let's go back to this, Tom, before you finish that. The Tigers kind of started this renaissance of good sports teams in Detroit. Obviously, the Lions, in the same year, I believe, went to the conference finals, losing to the 49ers. And then the Tigers took over, made the playoffs, and now sounds like, are you about to make a hot take prediction about the Red Wings as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, hang on. Let me get your ISO camera right here because we're going to look right into the camera here. Tom, the floor is yours regarding the Red Wings.
Thank you. The Red Wings will make the playoffs this year. I don't know how far they'll go from there, but they will make the playoffs. Detroit's such like an exciting sports city when everybody's rolling. It's incredible, and that's if I can say the thing I miss most about being in the big city. And I've been up here 45 years now. Is the sports but when I came up here, I learned how important high school basketball or high school sports were. I came up in January, so I got some basketball in there, and then all of a sudden, football teams and baseball teams and guys are winning softball teams. We won 4 districts in a row, I think, for Boeing. But the idea was that was so important. I mean, everybody talked about their high school team. They really didn't care. Well, the Lions weren't doing anything back then. But,
Right.
but Tigers weren't doing anything. Well, they won in '84, but the idea was that they bring us together. And high school sports up here is so incredibly important.
It's kind of like the fabric of each community,
I
if
do
you
like
will.
that,
You know,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
bringing everyone together, holding everything together, like it's stitched into like a tapestry of the community that the teams represent.
Where'd you
I got
learn
the.
I'm sorry.
No, you were good. I was just going to quickly say I was going through school at the same time Iserman was getting drafted, so I got to watch the rise of the Red Wings after all of that in the Russian Five and whatnot.
Where did you come with all these descriptive words, man? You are, I'm telling you, tapestry, all that stuff.
I mean, once it
What
started,
happened to 4th down and 2?
A
Watch the
and
Stephen
two.
A. a lot.
What happened to get the quarterback?
There he goes.
Rip his helmet off. Every now and then you come across a good line or you hear some good descriptive words in terms of how things are kind of bundled together or how teams or communities come together. And you remember those things, or you remember different types of words that writers have used. And we've got a lot of really good beat writers up here that cover high school sports for the local papers. And I do want to give a shout out to like a lot of these local papers that, the writers are out to 3, sometimes 4 games on the same night, and they're covering the whole territory by themselves. And being able to go out and about and be able to have the pen strokes.
Well, the way the paper's covered up here now, because a lot of the paper, it's not even printed up here; it's outsourced. So you got, you're basically they are working up here alone. A big shout out to Kohani there in Petoskey.
Yeah.
He does an outstanding job for the news review there.
I
Also,
worked with
shout
Jerry
out to
Rosefield
Jane. Yeah,
for
go
a
ahead.
long time. Jerry Rosefield, the sports editor. For
Yeah,
News
absolutely,
Review.
Jerry Rosefield.
Outstanding man. Outstanding man.
Also want to give a shout out to James Cook of the Record Eagle.
Yeah.
We'll have him on the podcast, I think, later on this month, but doing a great job of just keeping everybody abreast of what's going on in the local sports scenes and different communities that revere that type of print and writing, that people share that all around, whether it's in print, online, things like that. So shout out to all the writers up here, because that is one thing, Tom, and you might be able to talk about this more, that the art of writing columns about sports, that really has become an art form that not many people truly know what it takes that goes into that.
It is true. And the most important part about that is that they are very fair about what they say and about what's going on, and they're not for one team or another team. But I miss those Monday news reviews, and I don't buy the Saturday Record Eagle anymore, but that's where your scores were, and that's where you found them.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed in 9 and 10 of how they do their sports scores now. That's what we depended on.
Right.
When I was in radio, that's what we punched into
Right.
to pick up the scores, because you can get them everywhere. They do such a nice job, though, and you're right about Cohen. He does a good job, and he's everywhere, man. You see him sitting, and all of a sudden, there he is. It's across the way from you, but he's there.
Doesn't matter what venue I go in when it's basketball season or whatnot. I'd look across there he is. There's Drew. Nope, there's Drew at this game. Yeah. So our last segment for tonight, we're going to preview the Detroit Lions at the Philadelphia Eagles. It could be an intriguing matchup from my point of view. I think this could come down to the Lions' defense versus the Eagles' offense. The Eagles' offense has looked frustrating, and they seem to be kind of frustrated with each other. A.J. Brown's not happy. Jalen Hurts is having issues. The offensive line doesn't seem to, the timing of the tush push seems to be off if you look at the replays. in the Lions defense, they're going through injuries and they're not able to hold teams down. You've had to get into a scoring contest to pull out some of these victories. So for me, it's the Lions defense against Philly's offense, and whichever one wants to show up is probably the team that's going to end up winning. Jared, I'll pass it on to you.
This matchup, I've been some deliberating, and one of the things I kind of noticed when I was looking at both these teams is they're both kind of products of their city through their coach. I feel like Nick Sirianni is a very Philly, like a very great Eagles Philly coach, and then we all know about Dan Campbell, and we got to talk about him. He is Detroit, and both these teams embody that. And I think with Dan Campbell, you kind of some of the AJ Brown weird stuff you get with the Eagles, you wouldn't get with a Dan Campbell run team because he doesn't play like that. Versus in Philly, that's kind of what you have. Philadelphia is, well, you either love the Dirty Birds or you're they're just that team, or just Philly, like what's really going on there. It's a rowdy city, and AJ Brown, I don't know if if you guys said this. He said if I'm on your fantasy team, get rid of me. I mean, if that doesn't spell just disaster in Philly, I don't know what does, because AJ Brown, when he's playing the way he should be, he's a top 10 debatable top 5 wide receiver. But that being said,
guess who benched him?
Well, according to him, you'd be a smart man. So I just really do think that the Lions kind of just are going to take this game and make a statement. I think the Eagles are seen, the reigning Super Bowl champions. They've got some really good players there, no doubt. But after that last night game, they're just not the team I thought they were. And really this whole season, their record does not define how they've played. I think they're a lot worse than their record has shown. And I think the Lions, if anything, are better than their record. So I think you're going to see the Lions make a statement Sunday night.
Tom, what's your insight going into this game?
They got to kick butt and bite kneecaps.
Absolutely.
They are so tough, and that's the way Dan Campbell is. And I believe that his leadership takes the Lions that far. They have some outstanding players. The Jared Goff, Matt Stafford trade just turned out for both sides very well. But Dan Campbell is the guy that runs that. I mean, he's put that team together and says, we're going to win.
Let's take another step on that real quick. Are we all a fan of MCDC taking over play calling duties after last week?
Yeah.
I mean, I think on a one-game sample size this year, it's hard to argue. I mean, they did play the Commanders, so the Commanders looked like they were already booking their flights to Cabo.
Yeah. Well said.
That team looked like they had absolutely no interest in trying to tackle Jameson Williams on some of those deep post or crossing routes. So I think what you need to just take into account and consideration is this, as it pertains to the game coming up, but as it also pertains to Dan Campbell, calling the plays. I think the Lions actually made the step that Philly needs to make as well. I think you could say the same problem that the Lions have been having offensively, Philly has been having some of the same problems, and that the best way to solve it might just be to see a different offensive play caller in there. But the question is, for Philly, can Nick Sirianni go from being the type of coach he's been to now the offensive play caller, where Dan Campbell, I think what makes him so great as a head coach is not only his ability to know the pulse and the emotions of his players, to feel like they used, or how his players feel because he once was a player. He also knows what it's like to call plays because he was brought up in the tutelage of Sean Payton. And was it me, or did it seem very like Sean Payton-esque when Dan had those little cheater glasses on, looking at his play sheet? Sean Payton's got the same like cheaters on, calling his plays, and I was like, okay, this is truly a disciple of Sean Payton, who also understands what it's like to play in this league, and has the heartbeat of his team. So my prediction for this week, and Jared, I think you might have gone a little overboard on the overreaction series. I mean, like, I don't think you can take what AJ Brown said to the media about dropping him on your fantasy team and congregate that to the Eagles being bad and having more wins than they should. I think what he's saying is, like, I don't care about your fantasy team. Drop me. I want to win games. And that's what the Eagles are doing, which is winning games. I think a lot of the A.J. Brown stuff gets blown out of proportion. I truly do. Because they're not going to tailor their offense to A.J. Brown. They're going to tailor their offense to Jalen Hurts and play the kind of game that best fits their quarterback. It'd be like if the Lions tailor-fitted their offense to Amon-Ra St. Brown. No, you're not going to do that. That's the reason why St. Brown doesn't get 15 targets a game, is because Jared Goff is very adept at distributing the football to all of his weapons. You know what Jalen Hurts is good at doing? He's good at running RPO to Saquon Barkley, occasionally taking 3 to 4 deep shots a game, and then taking care of the football and picking up 4 to 7 yard scrambles when need be. That's what Jalen Hurts is. That's how the Eagles play ball.
Well, just to say about the A.J. Brown. So A.J. Brown, to kind of finish, he goes, well, about my life. My friends and family are good, but everything else is a blank show. So, what else would be in his life? The Eagles. So I think that he's extremely upset. I don't think he's playing as hard as he wants to because he's not getting the reps he wants. And, when you got a diva on your team, you got to feed the diva. And if you're not feeding the diva, you're seeing what's happening.
Winning games?
Not convincingly.
Yeah, that's part of it, but I'm old enough to know Bobby Lane.
Yeah.
From the Detroit Lions. For those of you who don't know who he is, look him up. He'd go in at halftime and have 3 or 4 shots and come out and win a game. And played with no face mask up until the time he retired. But I was 4 years old when the Lions won their last championship. You guys weren't even thought of yet, I'm sure. But those teams in the 50s were incredible. They were big and they were strong and they loved Bobby Lane. And Bobby Lane called his own plays. Even Milt Plum, if you remember that guy, Bart Starr, all these guys called their own plays. They were trained by their coaches to call the right play. But right now, you got some guy up on top and then you got some guy in the bottom and they're calling the plays. And you're going, I don't know, maybe I like that one.
Well, it just today's day and age, it's just too easy to get butt hurt than to hunker down and just play hard football. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much to Tom Clemens for joining us this week. We appreciate it. 40-plus years, and loved gabbing with you and getting some of your expertise into the field as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Don't forget to join us next week. We'll be back here next Thursday, right around 6:30. Make sure you are subscribing to Next Level Broadcasting. We'll put out a little signal early on so you get an alert if you've subscribed, so you know exactly when we're coming on. But we'll be here next Thursday, right around 6:30. So again, for Jared Stamen, for Charles Strail, for Tom Clements, I am Eric Huffman. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Take care.